For all the latest from the world of motoring, hit that subscribe button and stay connected.
Hi Sunil, good morning, and really lovely to see you here, with the Enduro. It looks massive, and all of us are having great time shooting it.
Right.
So please take us through why you bought this machine, what other machines in this category that you were considering.
Sure. So I think I've always been an off-road enthusiast, and sort of going out to the wilderness has been something that I like to do. And I've been doing this for like maybe 20 years now with several motorcycles. Started with an SD back in 1995 or something like that. Then a Comet GT250. Then a KTM Duke 390. Then I was looking for an upgrade, like everyone else does. And at the same time, I was financially enabled by SoftBank buying over our company. I was actually considering 3 motorcycles.
Okay.
One was the GS, the other one was Africa Twin, and then it was Multistrada. I was more leaning towards the Africa Twin for its dual sport abilities.
Yeah, ease of use basically.
Right, ease of use and more off-road oriented kind of a thing. But Multistrada got launched much earlier than the Africa Twin, and I got the money in the bank and I couldn't keep quiet.
Like you had to get one.
Yeah, and then my son also prompted that we'll be mostly using it on the road and a bit of off-road, so this makes more sense. And I thought we can travel with my wife or son in the pillion. And if it's a pillion rider, I think this is definitely a better choice.
Okay.
So those were the reasons I picked up the Multistrada. But outright, I knew when I took the test drive itself that it is going to be a challenge taking this off-road.
Okay.
So yeah, those were predominantly the reasons, like early launch.
Early launch. Okay. And what about the king of this segment, the GS? How come?
GS, the air-cooled engine was good, but the newer one isn't as good.
Okay.
And I haven't owned a bike to really comment about it.
Okay.
But so take my comments with a pinch of salt. What I've read in forums, and I'm part of Adventure Riders group now, is we see a lot of issues with the GS.
Okay.
In terms of the suspension and whatnot. Plus the pure performance of this is amazing. The different modes and stuff like that. So GS somehow was, I initially started with GS. In fact, people bought me, the scale model of the GS.
Okay.
Saying this is what the next one. I like the GS quite a bit too. But eventually the ease of riding of an Africa Twin, the DCT and whatnot, and this guy's electronic package, different modes, and the looks of this usability basically is when I felt is much better in this. So I picked this up.
So now let's talk about, since we reached the part of usability, let's talk about the engine and performance. So it's a big 1200cc engine, and it's got the DVT and a lot of electronics. So how has your experience been with it? You have taken it touring all across.
It's been totally awesome. There's no complaints about it. Engine is probably one of the reasons I picked it as well, because this bike, although it's a super bike, is very comfortable at lower speeds because of the variable valve timing.
Okay.
It doesn't sort of stall or wants to go fast. So I didn't want a bike that prompts you to go fast.
Okay.
That is a real safety concern kind of a thing. So this one is comfortable at all speeds, at lower speeds as well as higher speeds.
Okay.
The only issue is when you're in Bangalore traffic or whatever, you're just stuck, let's say 15 minutes or 10 minutes, more than 5 minutes if it's stationary in one place, then this one sort of
heats
up.
Okay.
So that's the only thing, but then you got to avoid all that by looking at Google Maps and not venture out into that place when it's deep red.
Okay. And when you're out on the highway, when you're out, go point A to point B, so what sort of timings and how fast is it? What's your experience?
This is really quick actually. Initial days, like I've been having it for like 3+ years now.
Okay.
The initial days I used to give sports mode demo to everybody.
Okay.
So, look, sit and let me show you what it can do. Put in sports mode and then flip it for maybe 100-200 meters and then bring it back, and people used to be awe-inspired. There was an incident in Thrissur. There was a birding. I had been there for birding,
Okay.
Abu Salim Birdlife Sanctuary. So the guide, I made him sit behind it, and I generally ride with the maps on, so I know the curves or whatever is coming.
Okay.
That guy is not sat behind for a long time. It seems like almost a decade. So I was giving him a sports mode demo. He got so spooked. He shook the whole thing out of it, and we went off the road into the mud at maybe 140 or something like
Oh
that.
my god. Okay.
And there was a wee stump there, I still remember. All the electronics and whatever people talk about came into play.
Okay.
It could reduce its speed even when it was off the road,
And
I
panic.
could
Okay.
get it back online.
Okay. Yeah.
So that day I stopped giving sports mode demo.
So it's
then
quite
I'm not
accelerating that.
Oh man, it's an entirely different animal in sports mode. When you accelerate, you know where you started and then you know where you are.
Okay.
The place of transition, right? You
Okay.
can't remember. It's that quick.
That quick. And then with the different riding modes, like for example in the city, is it much more tamer? Is it much more easier to ride?
Yeah, so I use the urban mode in the city and I change the settings to have low preload so that the height is a bit lower in the city. It's
Okay.
easier to manage. And very recently, as recently as a couple of months ago, I've got more confidence on the bike and I've increased the engine power in the urban mode.
Okay.
But it behaves very differently. Yeah? My tire went out for a toss after I changed the high power mode and was just trying it out between two flyovers, maybe for a few meters. And then, so it's really configurable. So
Okay.
I use different modes that way. Touring, as soon as I get out of Bangalore or I know I'm on long drive,
Okay.
or whenever pillion is there, touring works very well because
Okay.
they don't feel the jerk.
Jerks. Okay. Much more smoother.
Yeah, very
throttle
smooth
response. Okay.
throttle response.
Even the riding modes individually you can customize it.
Yeah. In
Okay.
each riding mode, you can set the front suspensions, preload, rebound,
Okay.
softness, hardness. Like there are 3-4 levels of it. I think 7 levels of it.
Okay.
So in every mode, you can change engine power, then traction control,
Okay.
ABS.
So every
suspension
mode
settings,
is further customizable.
further customizable.
Okay.
And the only thing I use is make the suspension soft and use a lower preload so that the height is a bit low in the urban mode.
Okay.
Rest all I use the default. Default is really nice.
And now that it's got the biggest tank in its category. I think GS is also pretty much similar. I guess 30 liter. So what sort of tank range once you fill it up?
I
What
think it's
distance
close
do
to
they
500
Okay.
kilometers
Okay.
on one fill. And more often I find while we travel, others going to fill somewhere in the middle and I don't have to. But I've stopped filling the tank to the full. I mean, I used to just say, Shell Premium full. That's what I'm used to in all my vehicles. But I learned the hard way that you should not fill full in the urban. I mean, it becomes challenging in slow-moving traffic, and you
It
don't
becomes
anyway
too top
need-
heavy, is it?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's top heavy.
Okay.
So 15-20 liters, if you remove off the top, it's an entirely different bike.
Okay.
And on the same lines, unless I see the orange light there, which says it's in reserve,
Okay.
off-roading you should not do.
Okay.
So it's very low petrol. That is when you should do off-roading.
It's much more easier to manage.
Yeah,
it's a good 20 kilos later, I guess then.
Yeah, and it makes a difference. Like if in the top. So imagine like in a regular motorcycle, you pick a rice bag on it, and then you do off-roading. Right, 25 kgs rice bag. That's an equivalent of not putting 25 liters in there.
Okay, so then let's move on to the handling part of it. So big points is the huge size. I believe 250 plus kgs of curb weight, and rider height that's about quite high. I believe 870 mm.
Yeah.
And the huge size of it. Can it really do off-road? I mean, like they show in the videos.
No. I was also fooled by Chris. Whatever his second name is, Chris videos. He used to do all wheelies and all that, and I said if he can do it, we can do it as well. That's not the case. I think people give him several bikes to go break, and somebody else is there to fix it. That's not the case with this.
Okay.
So again, I think generally I've seen adventure riders are all grey hair. I have a grey hair too. So people get into the adventure segment pretty late in their lifetimes. Maybe 35 plus or 40 plus, and that is not the right time to get into off-roading and stuff because your body is already started to sort of come down in its abilities. So at that point in time, if you pick up an adventure motorcycle and that is a heavy one like this, and you want to do something, then it's not really the bike, it's actually you.
Okay.
So do you put like maybe at least couple of hours in gym every day? If not, then you're not fit for the bike. So it's more a question of can you,
It's your ability.
can you take it off road? It can go because somebody else more fit can. So it's more like that. But that is also a good, what you say, a good input for me to keep exercising and keep fit.
Be fit for the bike.
Yeah, be fit for the bike. Otherwise you can't ride it. So it can do off road.
Okay.
But do you want to take it? Do you want to risk it? That is the question. See, for instance, I took it to Kodachadri. My wife and kid were filming in the Jeep and we were just climbing up. And the Jeep climbs very slowly.
Yeah.
And this can't keep up at that speed.
Yeah, you need the
very low
momentum to
speed,
keep
yeah.
going. Yeah.
So I used to stop and go. But one of the turns I committed to after the Jeep went to, and it's almost like a 4 feet gravel kind of a thing in Kodachadri. So the Jeep stopped halfway because he saw something coming in and I had to stop there. So it just turned off as soon as it's basically stalled.
Okay.
And it fell on the right. I didn't fell on my leg either, it just fell down. But looks like I've stretched my right leg so hard to reach the ground before it fell. It's called hyperextension. So I have a ACL tear, partial tear.
Oh.
So that is, ACL tear is a very common thing, more common than bone breakage.
Okay.
And surprisingly nobody talks about it. So the first thing if you pick up any heavy adventure bike or even on a regular bike if you're doing off-roading is to get knee braces.
Okay.
Knee braces reduce the chance by 50%. That's a big number.
That's a huge percentage. Yeah.
Yeah, so I learned it the hard way. Initially I saw the knee brace, I would have picked it up in US. I thought it's worn on the pants. So it'll look like you fractured your leg. But then I didn't realize it's inside the pants and it's anyway not visible. So right now also I'm wearing a knee brace. Always wear a knee brace. So hard lessons learned that, your knee is rated at 120 kgs. So you can't put more than 120 kgs on one leg.
One leg.
So you know the weight of this.
Okay.
So clearly you can't put that much weight
on
the thing. And one more thing that helps avoid such stuff is if you stand up and ride, when it falls, you tend to walk away.
Yeah.
If you sit and ride, you tend to keep your leg down.
Okay.
So it's better to stand up and ride in off-road, again for balancing as well.
Okay.
And the other thing is you won't generally feel like you want to put your leg down if you're standing up, you'll walk away. So yeah, I mean off-road it can do, but it's a very expensive affair if you drop this.
Yeah. And of course it is huge, but it has got the power to get out of any situation.
Yeah, so training, people must invest in training and helmets, like, I mean, riding gear and training. If it's just the bike, that's the investment and you stop there, I don't think it's the right thing to do. You've got to spend something on, training. Big Rock is available now, excellent terrain they have. So take it there. I got a lot of confidence after I went to Big Rock.
Okay.
And a few tweaks here and there after looking at the Beck Trex video.
Okay.
So simple stuff like, just removing the rubber out of the
pegs.
That makes a big difference. It's there, but you don't know that you need to remove that. And reducing the fuel before you do off-road. So these small things if you do and you train on a safe place, it goes a long way.
Okay, and so now in handling itself, out on the highway, I'm sure it's going to be super planted.
Right.
We already established that off-roading is possible, but from a daily use perspective, can you use it as a daily bike?
Yes and no, because in our conditions, where you go, you need to have good parking. Otherwise, when you come back, God knows what will happen to this. So it's limited by the parking availability. But you can't leave it in any place. But not by riding and all that. You can
very friendly in that way.
So maybe you take it a little bit easy in the initial days, maybe for a year or so, get used to it. And then you can do whatever you want with it. Okay. I mean, slow speed drops are very common.
Okay.
So mostly the drops happen when you start or very rarely when you stop. So when it's low speed, right?
Okay.
So you need to learn how to start and stop effectively. And you should also park that way. Like when you start, you need to have some leadway.
Okay, and now let's move on to the things you have done to your bike. I see a lot of things added to it. If you can take us through that, it will be really nice.
Yeah, sure. I mean, so few things outright you can see is some shock absorber kind of a thing for fall protection I've made. This is again a handlebar guard, but like bug busters. These are foldable levers, so they fold when they fall. There's some crash protection out here. There's an alternate foot peg out there. There's a crash protection as well.
Okay.
Then I moved this box a bit back
For the pillion.
about this much.
Okay.
And I have a custom seat. And me and my wife get more space on this.
Okay.
Generally, we hire a car to follow us, and wife and kid keep
Switching. Okay.
Sometimes they used to sit, but now he's grown. He cannot sit
Okay.
together on it.
I see the oil chain looping mechanism as well.
Oh yeah, that is totally awesome. The V system in there, it keeps lubricating the chain as you go by the vacuum. There are two ways. One is electronic, one is vacuum. This is the vacuum one. So this is very useful. It will let you ride guilt free. So few things that I was missing from a GS in this was the shaft drive.
Okay.
Because that is completely
like
encapsulated
zero maintenance.
and, with this it's almost that.
Okay.
Because it's always well lubricated and it lasts long. And even if you are in remote places, the red oil dispenser that people have, you just use that and fill it up. That's good enough.
So it can. That means that 400, 500 kilometer. Usually that's when you tend to. This is like a constant thing then.
Yeah, it has a setting of how much it needs to drop. So I think 200-300 kilometers it gets empty. But then it's looped the chain, so you can go for another 200-300 kilometers without it. But after that you have to. But again, it depends on the terrain. Like if you get into sand, I'll prime it, put it at the prime, so a lot of loop. And actually, after we come out, I'll find a water wash place and wash it immediately, and then this will continue to loop again.
Okay.
So that way, it's really nice. They say it will give you like 10x the life of sprocket. Even if it gives you 1x, the cost is recovered.
10x is a huge number.
Yeah, I'm sure it's worked very well.
Okay. One thing we forgot to talk about in the handling part of it is the rider height, the seat height basically. Right. So it at 870 mm, it is quite high and very intimidating actually. So
yeah, it is. I was intimidated too, and I mean all my life I've never felt I should have been taller. This is the first time I felt I should have been a bit more taller. And every inch actually matters quite a bit in terms of confidence. And I'm used to motorcycles where I can put my leg down and then shake the bike with the tank in the middle. Yeah. That's the comfort level. So this is okay for my height. I am 5'11". At 5'11", I think this is okay. You can place both your legs down in the single rider mode. But as soon as you go to off-road, there'll be ruts, right?
Okay, yeah.
Which will be like 3-4 inches or whatever. And most often than not, you'll have to stop on a rock or a rut or something like that. Then it becomes very difficult to manage. So generally what people do is at least one side they'll make sure they lean but the bike doesn't lean.
Okay.
So the moment you lean the bike,
the weight gets,
the bike has to remain straight and you can lean over whatever on the correct side. So one useful stuff I have is sole insoles.
Okay.
So I have a few, maybe you can check them out little later. So the sole insoles work. They're not very comfortable to ride around all day long. So before a climb or whatever, if I know that we're doing something that we should not be doing,
terrain,
then I stop, remove my shoes, put that insoles.
Get that
only for
inches.
that. Yeah, it makes a big difference.
Okay. And let's talk about the little bit of a tricky part. If there are things you would like different on this bike, what would those be?
It's just the height and weight for sure. Those are the two things. And I mean, Ducati every year it asks what do you like and what you don't as a questionnaire to all customers. And those are the two things that I have been sort of consistently saying that height and weight needs to be a bit lower.
Okay.
I have ridden the Africa Twin and it's like riding a Charisma. It is so trivial and it's like you don't have to plan. It just goes around. Yeah. And I like the
ease of
riding. But again, the power and suspensions that this one has, I don't think anybody else has. You don't feel anything actually, it just literally glides over stuff.
Yeah, we haven't talked about the key aspect. That's the skyhook suspension. Yeah. That's a huge part of the Multistrada experience.
That is one of the make or break kind of a thing. I picked it up because I want to tour quite some with my wife and the better half needs a better seat and a better suspension.
So these suspensions, they adapt to the conditions.
Yeah, right? They are active suspensions, and there is settings of preload for single rider with just the panniers, or two riders with panniers. Okay. And it makes a big difference in terms of the suspension hardness and all that. And I was trying to see if we can improve this in any way, but it's not possible.
It's maxed out.
Yeah, in the sense, the front suspensions have multi-rated springs
Okay.
already in there. The rear is also active, front is active, and you can feel the preload and suspension change when you sit on it and change the mode. It goes up and comes down.
You can, okay.
You can feel it. It's all sort of hydraulic, and it's an active suspension. I think every 10 milliseconds it checks and readjusts based on
The terrain. Okay.
road that you're traveling. So once when I was going to Madanpalli, there was a curve, and there's a hump just after the curve or before the curve, I forgot somewhere, but I missed the board. It's very close.
Okay.
Then I was at good speed, and I had to take that hump at a good speed. This guy's suspension really took it nice.
Okay.
And nothing happened to the rims, whatever. I
Okay.
was at good speeds, maybe let's say 100 or 120 or something like that. And big hump, and maybe I slowed down to 80 or 100 or something like that, but there was no time to react. I just stood up, and then it went through that like nothing.
It was able to handle that surprise, yeah.
Like the weight plays in its way, I think, because this is a heavy thing, and then the wheels are lighter relatively.
Okay.
So the suspension just picks it up very nicely.
Very nicely. And I believe you have changed your tires from the stock as well. So
Right.
how are they running?
I still have the stock tires,
Okay.
but I like the rally quite a bit
Okay.
for off-road use. The trail tools were also very good. I think I took it out just 1 week after I bought it. Went for a 1,200 kilometers ride and came back. It was on the trail too.
Okay.
It crossed the 1,000 kilometers mark,
Yeah.
first service mark.
Yeah.
But I started liking this quite a bit. Initial, when you change, you will feel that it's not smooth, and it's almost like riding on tracks, because it's
Yeah, the huge
resisting
button
the
tires,
turn
yeah.
and all that.
Okay.
Yeah. So it gets a bit used to, but once you get used to it, it's really nice, both on road and off road.
Off-road, okay.
But they're again soft compounds, so you better not twist the throttle as much. Otherwise, you'll have to change it very frequently. This is my third set. now.
Third set. So what kilometers are we looking at? How many kilometers?
It's third set considering the original one too. So this is actually the second set,
Okay.
so to say. So 5,000 kilometers I changed to that.
Okay.
Now it's 18, so 518 around 10-12,000 kilometers.
Kilometers on a set. Okay. That's actually pretty decent.
Yeah, it's very good actually.
So now let's talk about owning a big bike. You're scared of dropping it because there are a lot of damage that can happen and
Yeah.
big bills that can come your way.
That's
So
right.
how is the service experience? Is it similar there?
Yeah, actually I was worried about that when I picked it up too, because because of the company buy or whatever, I had some money to buy the bike, but then what about the regular maintenance and stuff? So I spoke to Vinayak. He gave me quite some confidence that it's not very expensive to maintain, and that's true actually. Service intervals are very large, like 10,000 kilometers or 15,000 kilometers, something like that. It's ridiculously large. I want to give it to service before
10,000
it wants
miles,
to
yeah,
go.
so close to 50. That's a huge.
Yeah, that's huge. So, and Ragesh, the mechanic, does an excellent job of it. He's very, passionate about it and does the right stuff. So it's not been very expensive. So it's essentially the tires and brake parts that are the consumables.
That are expensive.
Right. And I think the rear suspension had an issue, and they changed it in the warranty.
Warranty itself.
Right. So that was once that happened. But otherwise, I have not seen any issue.
Okay.
Right now, even the warranty is run out. I've not renewed it. There was a time frame which I missed, and now they have.
Yeah, they have the extended warranty
right,
program.
extended warranty.
Okay.
So that extended warranty I didn't enroll in time.
Okay.
So I want to get that. Because there's a lot of electronics, I want to get that. Otherwise, it's very nice. So only other thing that is there on the bike is a K&N filter.
Okay.
It made a big difference in terms of. It used to stall at lower speeds. I didn't see that happen with the K&N. I think it helped. I'm trying to get in an iridium spark plug, but it's very difficult to get the right size with the right. Because the Italians don't give a lot of space around.
They built it to their spec.
Exactly. It's a 14 mm bolt, and then I got a 16 mm. Now 16 cannot go in with the tool. 16 goes in, but you can't put the tool. So it's crazy. Still working on that. But otherwise, it's an excellent bike as stock.
As stock. They pretty much thought of everything.
Yeah.
You were telling me earlier for
this
the
is crazy. Actually, this is a hit air jacket, like air jacket, and it has a clip where you plug in from the motorcycle tag, so that when you fall off, it just pulls. But these guys have thought about a hole to plug in that tag when not in use
Yes.
in the motorcycle. So that is like a real corner case.
Too much attention to detail.
Seriously, I was like shocked. I mean, are you serious?
So Sunil, is there anything that that really bothers you about this bike, or something you wish was different apart from the height and weight we already talked
Yeah,
about?
height and weight, and maybe DCT is missing. Yeah. I mean, I've fallen in love with Africa Twin DCT. In a sense that if something doesn't stall, you don't have to worry about clutch and whatnot. You can just focus. It's almost like my Jeep Gurkha. It will crawl by itself. All I have to do is
Just
steer
steer
and
it.
show it. So it's almost that good, the Africa Twin, and the low height and all that. They made it really nice. But it doesn't make sense to sell this and get an Africa Twin for sure. And if you have a pillion, then this is the bike, not
Yeah,
the
not the
Africa
80,
Twin.
okay.
The newer one has an electronic suspension, but that's yet to see how it is.
Yeah, it's not yet launched.
Yeah,
not
it's
yet
not
yet.
yet launched.
Okay, so it's been a great conversation and a lot of input on actually owning it.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, and I'm sure you're going to have a lot of new experiences on it.
Right. Thank you for having me here.